Lawyers of Reddit. What's a case you regretted winning? Story 1. I prosecuted a dog-taking of life. A 21-year-old kid started dating an older guy's ex-girlfriend. The older guy, a roughneck with loose connections to a local biker gang, went all over his small town talking about how he was going to teach the kid a lesson. After the kid sent a smart-ass text in response to some crude photos, the older guy came to his house looking for a fight. A single shot was fired, and the older man's life was extinguished. The jury didn't buy the self-defense argument. Voluntary manslaughter, 20 years. I have a son about that kid's age, and I could see him doing the exact same thing. That verdict will haunt me until I die. I started looking for other work the moment I heard it. Story 2. This has happened to me twice. Twice, I've gotten my client out on bail, only to have their life taken shortly after. The first time, he was cornered by police in a building. A struggle ensued, and he was shot point blank in the head. His mother told me it was my fault, that I was working with the DA. The second time, a young man, no older than 16, was released while awaiting trial. A condition of his release was a curfew. That very night, he broke it. He went to someone's house and his life was taken in a drug-related robbery. His mother blamed me. She said the devil was working through me, that we were all demons. Criminal defense is a hard business. Story 3. I saw a case that was a legal monkey's paw. It was a simple claim, but if the plaintiff won, the defendant would have to pay their attorney's fees. The defendant's lawyer pushed an aggressive, clever legal position at trial, and the judge agreed. They won, avoiding a few thousand in liability. So far, so good. But the plaintiff appealed. They appealed all the way to the state's high court. The high court agreed with the plaintiff, reversed the decision, and sent it back. The trial court now had to enter a new judgment, a few thousand in damages, and now tens and tens of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees from the appeal. That first, celebrated win became a catastrophic loss. Story 4. In family law, you never really win, but this was different. My client fought ferociously for custody of the family dog. He won. And then, he turned the dog over to a shelter. The ex-wife received an anonymous tip and was able to get the dog back, but the horror of it stayed with me. The fight was never for the dog, it was just to take something she loved away from her. Divorce can truly bring out the absolute worst in people. Story 5. A woman wanted full custody of her daughter. We used every tool at our disposal, the state's preference for the mother, her improved financial situation, and minor details about the dad to discredit him. We won. Not even a month later, the mother calls. She has a problem. Her boyfriend had violated the girl, and after revealing this horror, she had the gall to ask if we would pick up his defense. That case was one of the things that made me quit to go work somewhere else. Anywhere else. Story 6. I've seen a few clients win the blue-collar lotto, getting more money from a personal injury case than they know how to handle. I do my best to educate them, but my job is to maximize their recovery, not teach them finance. I know for a fact I've contributed to a few drug habits. There's one client I've refused to represent again. I'm not entirely sure he isn't causing accidents on purpose. Story 7. I did custody work early in my career, and one case is more on my trial skills than on the merit of my client. The chilling thing about family law is that 75% of the lawyers practicing it are clueless and awful. Early in my career, I was certainly clueless, but at least I wasn't awful. So, in a battle between clueless plus awful versus just clueless, clueless usually won. I can't recall specific cases, only the general, sinking feeling that fighting over children in court is a terrible thing where everyone loses. I regret that entire portion of my career. It's soul-crushing. Story 8. I handled a divorce where the husband, my client, wanted to trade full custody of his children for a set of bedroom furniture. It wasn't even an heirloom. It was cheap, mass-produced furniture you could get at any generic store. He wanted to trade his children for it. I won that point for him in the negotiation. The memory of it still makes me ill. That's why I got out of family law. Story 9. The one where the client never paid. As a young associate, I was forced to take a commercial trial to court even after the client, unhappy with my boss, stopped paying. The court refused our motion to withdraw. We were trapped. We had to go to trial, spending a significant amount of time and firm resources. I won. The client never paid a cent. His position was that my boss screwed up the original deal, so the trial should never have happened in the first place. Firm policy prohibits suing clients, so we just had to eat the loss. A forced victory with a bitter taste. Story 10. I work in medical malpractice defense. An obstetrician burned a patient during a procedure. For 16 months, he lied to my face, insisting he had no idea how it happened. But a woman came in without a burn and left with one. It was a clear case of negligence. It wasn't until I brought up settling the case, explaining that we could not win, that he finally broke. "Oh," he said calmly, "maybe I do know what happened." We settled, a favorable outcome. Sometimes I lie awake thinking that man should have lost that case, and his license with it. Story 11. I got a spoiled teenager cleared of a shoplifting charge I knew he was guilty of. His rich parents hired me, and I did my job. We won at trial. but I felt nothing but disgust. That kid needed a lesson in accountability. Instead, his parents just bored his way out of it, ensuring the darkness in him would have more time to grow, unchecked. It reminds me of the affluenza defense, a laughable concept that somehow worked, where a person is deemed too rich to know right from wrong. It's a chilling thought that justice can be so easily warped. Story 12. I represented a father who had lost custody because of heroin use. He came to me clean, with his life seemingly together. It checked out. We fought viciously against the mother and prevailed, restoring his unsupervised custody. A few months later, he was back on heroin. He sold his furniture, and then, in a truly soul-crushing act, he set up a fake GoFundMe for his child's non-existent cancer to fuel his habit. The net result of my win was that a poor boy had to witness his father's descent back into hell and was exploited in the process. It was the worst case I ever won. Story 13. My sole purpose at one firm was to take people's houses away for not paying their homeowners association dues. The work was mind-numbingly boring, just cutting and pasting addresses and amounts owed into forms. After my first set of foreclosures, I slipped into a legitimate depression. I was being paid peanuts to drive an hour to a job I despised, on behalf of people I couldn't pretend to care about, ruining the lives of others. The final straw was realizing, I'm that guy. I was the faceless entity on a letter that destroyed a family. I told my wife I'd rather be homeless than go back. Every case where I took someone's home was the worst case I ever won. Story 14. I've handled my fair share of domestic abuse cases. About 90% end with dismissals. It's a win I never like getting. The reason is a grim, predictable cycle. Victims typically reconcile with their abusers. They stop coming to court. Without their testimony, the state's case crumbles. It happens almost every time. You watch the door close, knowing it will all happen again. Story 15. I settled a personal injury case for a man who was in jail. Story 16. We settled a case for several $1 million for a girl whose father's life was taken. The money was placed into a blocked account until she turned 18. The day she became a legal adult, her mother, who was divorced from the father, told her they were going to move the money to a better account. Instead, the mother transferred it all to her own account and fled the country, leaving her daughter with nothing. She essentially made her kid an orphan twice over. Money does horrible things to people. Story 17. I represented an insurance company. An applicant had a serious back injury from a fall. After 5 years of treatment, we were finally getting to a settlement for his permanent disability and future medical care, a sum well into 6 figures. Then we found out he had aggressive brain cancer with only a couple of years to live. The bean counters at the insurance company gave the order. We would no longer buy out his future medical care. His life expectancy was too short. We fought it, but they wouldn't budge. He got a fraction of what he should have. The opposing attorney, after working on the file for 5 years, decided to take zero in fees, giving it all to his dying client. That's the only part of the story I don't regret. Story 18. I represented a kid from juvenile court up into adulthood. I watched him fight, get his GED, go to NA, start community college. He was trying. On the night of his 21st birthday, he was charged with a DWI. 6 months later, we were due in court for the trial. He didn't show up, which was highly unusual for him at this point. As I was trying to figure out where he was, the court started arraignments for a new case. 3 people were up on charges for taking a life. The prosecution read the facts. There was a drive-by shooting at a party. They read the victim's name. It was my client. He never made it to the hospital. The state had to dismiss his DWI charge. You can't prosecute a dead man. I guess, technically, it was a win. Story 19. I was representing the government at a social benefits tribunal. The applicant was an autistic man, trying his absolute best to contribute to society, but struggling to make ends meet. He was sympathetic, kind, and deserving. But under the strict letter of the law, he simply didn't qualify for the benefit. My closing argument was a nightmare. I had to state that no matter how much we empathized, the tribunal had to apply the law as written. He lost. When I left the building, he was just sitting on the curb outside, crying. That image has stuck with me for years. It was the lowest point of my career.